Hey, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? I'm Blossom here once again from the likes of the Maxi Toys videos, and originally I was trying to go back into the forms of Knight's Journey of Dreams for the Nintendo Wii for a continuation Let's Play of that game, but I've decided to actually tackle through the next Mario game, because if you couldn't tell already, much like the forms of how it does it in, well, basically Super Mario Galaxy and Super Mario Odyssey we are still doing. And since that recently, that Piglet has recently finished up with the conclusion of the forms of the entire Let's Play of New Super Mario Bros. 2 due to the likes of the Coin Rush mode. So speaking of which, that today marks the forms of the official release for New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe for the Nintendo Switch, because today we are decided to do a Let's Play of that game but new forms of the Nintendo Switch. Now, technically speaking, that this game is pretty much a combination of both New Super Mario Bros. U and New Super Luigi U that already exist on the Nintendo Wii U. But there are some noticeable differences, or slight differences. Like, as you can see, the main menu screen is actually pretty nice, actually. Even way more up there compared to the forms of how it does it well in the Wii U version, because I found the Wii U version's menu is alright, but it's a little bit too bland for my liking. But at least on the Nintendo Switch version, I do appreciate it by the forms of some of these icons they do understand, and that's all I can really think about. And we've decided to actually do for a multitude of things that is going to be consistently different about this particular Let's Play compared to the forms of New Super Mario Bros. U and New Super Luigi U Let's Plays respectively, because I'm actually going to be doing both of those modes entirely again, but this time around though, 41080p and I would say full screen, so even then though, that way we don't have to see these annoying black bars from the top to bottom to the sides. So anyways though, as you can tell, the major differences between the original New Super Mario Bros. U to the likes of New Super Luigi U as well, is that as you can see, I can now finally select any type of characters we wanted to choose. Like, for instance, we have the returning players like Mario, Luigi, Toad, even though that usually has Yellow Toad for some reason, because Blue Toad wasn't in this game after all. Well, I'll get some more details onto that later, because if we go onto the continuous to the right, that technically we still have ourselves another returning playable character by the forms of Nabbit right there. And we have a new playable character introduced in this particular game, and that is Toadette. So, generally, as you can see, between Toadette, and Nabbit, both of these characters do have the actual special text on top, meaning they have a little bit of an easier time with the actual main game itself. But either way though, we'll get to the more details onto that when we get into the actual game. So, yeah, as usual, we are about to be going through, starting with Mario, because eventually in the latest videos of this particular Let's Play, I've decided to switch over those characters level by level instead of world by world. I know it's kind of a little bit of an odd choice to do that, because obviously, because of how the fact that I'm going to be doing the exact same ways of how it does it in the forms of Super Mario Bros. 2, in the forms of in the Super Mario All-Stars game, so we thought that we might actually switch between those characters at any point. So, yeah, let's get to with the forms of New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe for the Nintendo Switch. So, naturally speaking, that this game did first announced it back in, I would say Nintendo Direct in the 13th of September in 2018, which is about 5 months ago now, from out of nowhere, that I've heard from the actual rumors back then. They did manage to say they're going to be re-releasing the forms of New Super Mario Bros. U on the Nintendo Switch, but if the rumors say it was true, then until, Nintendo Direct comes up during the likes of in September, then it did happen. So, I was a little bit excited, but also skeptical at first, because, well, this game plays exactly like the original New Super Mario Bros. Game, basically, except Well, as you can see on the actual cutscene, even though I'm going to talk through this particular cutscene, because, you know, it's exactly like the exact same scene of how it does it on the Wii U version, except Toadette has now been in a join of the group. Whilst the forms of how it does in New Super Mario Bros. U / New Super Luigi U, that Blue Toad was in every single scenes. So, naturally, that makes it a little bit of a difference here, so... But again, I do apologize by the forms of the lack of uploading schedules recently because of how the fact that, well, I was really into this actually, because either way, can't wait to able to actually just replay that game again, but this time on the Nintendo Switch and play on the go. Even though being on the Nintendo Switch ports was a bit unnecessary, because I was expecting if they're going to be bringing up the original 2D Mario game, but turns out it was another Wii U port, so... How much ports do we have? Like, let's just say about, well, I'll get into more details in the next video, because here we go with the first world of New Super Mario Bros. U. Almost the entirety of the actual game itself, we have Acorn Plains. So, as to be expected, if you ever play through New Super Mario Bros. U and New Super Luigi U simultaneously, you'll be going for the exact same worlds and the exact same levels on the exact same time. It almost reminds me of the forms of replaying the actual, like, worlds 4 times, just like how it does in Sonic Heroes, but except, well, they don't increase the difficulty or anything. It's still pretty much exactly similar. But, honestly, out of all the actual levels throughout this game offers, until when we get to the New Super Luigi U portion of the forms of New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, that, I'll get some more details onto that later, but for now, as far as the performance of this game goes, compared to New Super Mario Bros. U and New Super Luigi U at the same time, I'm not going to point out for the review or anything, it's just that, well, obviously because I just want to point things out for the aesthetical changes. Well, the aesthetics, or especially the visual style, is pretty much exactly the same, although the noticeable difference is the fact that this game is now in full 1080p now, and especially noticeable how the fact that if you play this on handheld mode, it's now in 720p, which I appreciate it, better than the forms of the Wii U gamepad, that's for sure, for the quality standpoint, but honestly, for what I've saw this as the forms of the announcement of the forms of this particular version of the game, I was pretty excited and skeptical at first, just because of how the fact that, well, first of all, let's get into the actual, skeptical, points of view, is the fact that I found it very unnecessary to be able to actually just let that announced on that specific port, and second of all, well, I don't know about you, but at least to me, New Super Mario Bros. Series is pretty okay to me. I mean, usually the first game is actually absolutely fantastic, and the Nintendo Wii game makes sense for, you know, trying to make it as a true multiplayer experience for the 2D Mario game at long last. But New Super Mario Bros. 2 is kind of underwhelming. Well, at least the most unoriginal Mario games I've ever seen to actually existence for. But New Super Mario Bros. U, I think I get the idea. The reason why they try to port the game over to the Nintendo Switch now is because I've heard that New Super Mario Bros. U was actually the greatest launch titles for the Nintendo Wii U. Even though the Wii U, it's pretty much dead. So, naturally speaking, that's all I can usually just try to say to that. So as you can see, I've managed to complete Acorn Plains Way, by the forms of the first level of Acorn Plains, so I've decided able to switch over to Luigi now, thanks to the forms of the changing character system, which is pretty much a pretty cool idea, because, you know. Alright, so here we go with Toadette Tunnel, in this case, Acorn Plains 2. So, as to be expected from any other 2D Mario games at this rate, including buddy forms of New Super Mario Bros. Series, I'm actually going to be going for 100% completion of the entire game, meaning all the star coins, every single secret exits, and you know the rest. The only exceptions I might not tackle through is the forms of the extras modes, because, well, honestly, because of how the fact that they are still pretty damn similar to the forms of how it does in the regular levels themselves, meaning by the forms of, let's just say in a boost rush mode, and also some challenges, which I might as well be able to go for those on my own time, and coin battle, I don't have my friends to play with me at the moment, just because, well, especially for Bubbles and Buttercup, because they are still waiting for me to able to prepare for Splatoon 1 coming back into before we get into Splatoon 2. And still we need to be able to actually just to do that, especially because you know how the fact that back in about almost a year ago now, that Octo expansion pack has already been revealed about almost a year ago. So once we're done with Splatoon 1, then we jump into Splatoon 2, and then after Splatoon 2, then we jump into Splatoon 2 Octo expansion. So even then though, that just makes it a little bit of an okay choice for me. So even then though, that way it could able to work out. So yeah. So anyways though, yeah, again, this game came out recently today for about almost the entirety of the day, almost about like 17 hours ago, or in this case, buddy forms of a few hours ago actually, buddy forms of the uploading schedule, but hey, at least that's something. So, anyways, what's my positive things about this particular version of the game? Well, first of all, you probably realized about something is the fact that there are some slight differences or slight changes compared to the forms of the Wii U version of the game. I've already mentioned about the forms of the quality standpoint, like the forms of 1080p on TV mode, and the improvement handheld quality is now in 720p. And plus, as you can see, I can now finally able to actually switch between every single characters within each level, where it comes to like, not only by the forms of New Super Mario Bros. U, but when we get to New Super Luigi U, then you might as well do the same thing. So, naturally, that's how you usually can gather for. But, there's one thing I will point out right away before you're able to get into New Super Luigi U, is the fact that, well, I'm not going to mention about that before you're able to actually jump into that. But anyway, apart from the fact that this game is, you know, pretty much exactly similar to the Wii U version of the game, this means about the fact that they didn't add anything new, other than they did add some new things to the mix, by the forms of the new playable character Toadette, and you can now actually play as Nabbit in the New Super Mario Bros. U levels, which, even then though, we'll get to those characters until we get to the later levels throughout in this game offers. So, but either way though, that's my only things I was want to point things out right away, because either way though, that's as far as I can usually get when it comes to New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe. It's just there for the sake of the forms of the, you know, another Nintendo Switch ports to the, well, in this case, sorry, I really do apologize for this point, folks, but it forms of another Wii U port. So even then though, that I just want to point things out right away, that we've got Mario Kart 8 Deluxe for the Switch, and also New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, which has already happened recently, and also we have Pokken Tournament DX, and also Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, Rayman Legends Definitive Edition, Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition, and I think that's about it so far. So, that was about almost 5 ports for right now. I'm guessing because the only reason why that was existence is because, you know, the Wii U sells is pretty poorly. So either way though, that's as far as we can consider that. So, yeah, enough about that little, explanation for now, because at first I thought that I was gonna be pretty excited about this actually, because it's been about quite a few years, well actually almost 3 years since last time I've played New Super Mario Bros. U, but on the Wii U console. So even then though, it might take a while to get used to with the forms of the new controller types, because if you couldn't tell already, I'm gonna be playing the Nintendo Switch Pro controller, because you know how the fact that I always use that in certain games, most notably Sonic Forces, Super Mario Odyssey, and especially noticeable with Mario Tennis Aces, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and especially noticeable with Sonic Mania Plus, and I don't normally use the Pro Controller as much in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, because normally I just use the GameCube controller, because that's the most definition of the forms of the better control in my honest opinion, and also I use that for Kirby Star Allies, which still, we need to get back into the forms of the Kirby series of Let's Plays, because right now we're actually at Kirby Superstar Ultra right about now, and well, it wasn't enough until when it gets to spring at some point, so that might be a spoiler alert territory. And as you can see right there on screen, I'm going to be playing as Yellow Toad for this particular stage, because I'm going to be going back to this level to get this secret exit. So, you know how it is, basically we need to get into that certain point of the level, you know, with the tilting purple or pink crystal platform right there that usually just tilts it from the opposite side, like this spot here. And we need to get on top, very much like how it does it from before, from Super Mario Bros. And jump on the actual, like, after you jump off the forms of that blue crystal object, or this little obstacle, then you have to go all the way to the right, and then once you come across into this green pipe down there, then this will actually lead you to the secret exit. So yeah, you get the idea at this point. So even then though, yeah, let's just get into the actual game itself actually, for you know, for the forms of the likes of New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe in comparison to the Wii U version still. Another noticeable difference is this time is the fact that, well, obviously, you can still play this on the handheld mode, but either way, other than the fact that there was no boost blocks this time, because either way, originally on the Wii U version of the game, that usually utilizes the forms of the Wii U gamepad's features, most notably by the forms of the boost blocks, but now in this particular version of the game, they removed that entirely just because, speaking of which, in boost blocks, in this case in the boost challenges, but the forms of originated from the Wii U version is also completely absent, just because, well, you know, still then the Nintendo Switch does have a touchscreen functionality still, but apart from that though, there is no boost blocks to be had. So anyways, let's switch over to the forms of a newcomer to the forms of the 2D Mario industries, which will have to be Toadette herself. Technically speaking, that Toadette was already a playable character by the forms of the 2D Mario game, but that was the forms of the mobile phones. But usually it's because of the forms of Super Mario Run, and I think I'm actually pointing things out for this point right away, that Toadette, she is basically a replaceable player for the forms of Blue Toad. See, even then though, that Blue Toad is now being replaced, so either way though, if you really want to get multiplayer experience going, because yes, this version of the game still has multiplayer experiences, but the difference is here that no longer going to have to use the Wii Remote controllers, or especially noticeable with the Wii U gamepad, because you know, the Wii U system is dead, and you can now able to actually use either the Joy-Con controllers, or the actual controller grip, or the forms of my personal favorites, the Nintendo Switch Pro controller. Well, usually because of the forms of a much better D-pad in my opinion, just because, you know. So, let's get to the forms of Toadette by the forms of New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe / New Super Luigi U Deluxe. She plays exactly like the forms of how it does it for many other characters, basically, other than the fact that if you ever play as Toadette or Nabbit, which we'll get into later, as you can see, my timer counts that you can see on the forms of the level I'm in right now, Crushing Cock Tower, basically, originally, oh my lord, what do we have here? As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, we introduce into ourselves Peachette, which is basically a new type of transformation of almost, but to me, she kind of falls more likely into the disguise of almost. But anyway, I'll get into more details onto the actual point of itself later. Because, for Toadette, as far as the actual new stuff is included, that not only do we able to actually play as Toadette, by the forms of this version of the game, due to the forms of how you usually think that Blue Toad has been replaced. So, naturally, that Toadette got her own unique power-ups. Even then though, actually, fundamentally though, that her power-up is the forms of the Super Crown. And, you know, only Toadette can wear that, because if you select Mario, Luigi, or Yellow Toad on the other hand though, it will not work like that. So even then, Toadette, she's the only one she's going to be able to accept this power-up. So even then, what that does is that it'll actually transform her into Peachette, and what she does though is the fact that taking notice by the forms of the playable characters from both Princess Peach and especially Princess Daisy from both Super Mario Run. As you can see, she can actually hover for a few seconds, or in this case for a long period of time, even a long time compared to the forms of Super Mario 3D World. Or even especially notable with the forms of, let's just say Super Mario Bros. 2, in this case Super Mario USA in Japan, and she can able to perform a double jump, very similar to Daisy from Super Mario Run. So, yeah, it's pretty interesting, all these to being considered. But back in October, or even after when the forms of this game was first announced back in the Nintendo Direct about 5 months ago, a lot of community out there, especially if you ever, for those of you who ever played some ROM hacks of Super Mario 64, geez, there's a lot of Super Bowserettes on the forms of the actual ROM hacks, but in forms of like fan arts and DeviantArts, and especially noticeable with some of these Super Mario 64 ROM hacks and stuff like that, including there was one from Super Mario Party from the Nintendo Switch as well, and I was like, oh my god, what were they thinking about that design? But anyways, enough about that. I'll explain more details onto that for that specific point. So for now, before we continue on with the Acorn Plains 3, let's go ahead and switch over to the forms of the last playable character on there, and that is Nabbit. And as you can tell, that he was actually on very easy. So meaning that if you don't see if you ever played New Super Luigi U before, that if you really want to able to play as him, you have to press that specific button, one of those shoulder buttons to be more exact. Then if you manage to able to hold that button down for about before you're entering the level, then you can able to play as Nabbit, which fundamentally though, in New Super Luigi U, all he does is basically he just becomes invisible for the entire time. However though, that could be the same applies from this game this time around, because either way though, this time however though, the only difference is this time is that you can now able to actually just select him as at any point. So, it makes it incredibly game breaking though, but either way though, the reason why I'm going to be doing for this point when it comes to like switching character system, but in forms of this particular Let's Play is concerned, because I feel like showing you guys by the forms of how these characters plays out. Even then, because of that though, back in the forms of our Let's Plays of New Super Mario Bros. U and New Super Luigi U, that in those two Let's Plays that you'd be mostly focusing on Mario and Luigi's playable perspective, so that's why I've decided to do this particular system this time around. So even then though, that way you can able to actually see most of the playable characters on screen multiple times, but in forms of, depends on what levels you're in. Look at that. I think Nabbit has actually gone pretty weird when it comes to like swimming underwater, even though he doesn't use his arms aggressively, but rather than his feet. So yeah, it's a bit weird and goofy at the same time, but either way though, yeah, that's as far as I can get. It's kind of like the same thing for how it does it in Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze from the Nintendo Switch. That in that version of that game, that there's actually a fifth playable character by the forms of Funky Kong, and in that specific purpose that he can able to actually be completely invulnerable to spikes because of his surfboard, and especially noticeable that he can perform infinite rolls, and especially noticeable with the forms of the double jump and the actual hovering ability, and as a result, it makes it incredibly game-breaking for most people, and to make matters even much more game-breaking for Funky Kong in that game, that he only has like 5 hearts, compared to the forms of 3 if you ever play as Funky mode with Donkey Kong or the crew, and 2 for the forms of the normal mode. Now, as you can see, by the forms of the actual coloring space on that secret level, as you can see, my space is purple, meaning that only Nabbit can able to actually achieve the purple space. And if you want to able to go back to its normal blue, you must be sure you need to able to play as Mario, Luigi, and Toad and Toadette. So, Toadette doesn't really matter when it comes to if you're able to try and using her, but even then though, that Toadette is actually pretty fun to play though, especially because of how the fact that with the switching characters mechanic this time around, so naturally it just makes it a little bit more funner, I suppose. So anyways, let's switch back to Mario once again, and this time we're gonna go to Yoshi Hill in Acorn Plains 3. By the way, the secret level that we've done is the forms of Blooper's secret lair. So yeah, it's one point things out for this point. For those of you who haven't watched my or for those of you who haven't seen Let's Play of New Super Mario Bros. U, go ahead and check it out if you can. So anyways, son of a stupid Monty Mouse. I think the enemies doesn't like Mario all this much after by the forms of almost 30, or actually no way, I think it was actually 35 years actually, because until next year in 2020, then, you know, the entirety of the Super Mario Bros. Games will be entirely in 35 years old right now. Well, not until when it gets to next year, though, on the other hand. Until, you know, 2020. So, yeah, you get the idea. So, yeah, when it comes to the forms of Toadette herself, that she plays exactly like, you know, new forms of how it does in any other characters, except, well, her voice usually heavily borrows that by the forms of, you know, in Super Mario Run almost, but either way though, that she's kind of cool, and I'm very glad that Toadette was actually a playable debut on a 2D Mario game for the first time. Well, technically if you want to count Super Mario Run on the forms of the iOS devices, but it's pretty cool to able to actually let Toadette become playable again, and especially noticeable on a console game, just like in the forms of how it does it on, you know, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker for, you know, Nintendo Wii U, Nintendo 3DS, and especially Nintendo Switch. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. But, usually the only thing is about that, though, is the fact that, if you manage to play as Toadette the whole entire time, or even Nabbit, I should say, it might actually break the challenge for a little bit, if you haven't played the Wii U version about it yet. But, if you ever, since I've already experienced the Wii U version, I've decided able to show you guys what every single character has to offer, but either way, though, I'm just gonna say that much until now. So yeah, for this point and onwards, you're probably not going to be seeing Mario for the majority of the later levels, because I'm going to be, you know, constantly switching between any kind of character each time in every level. So even then though, because I might as well do the exact same way for how it does it when Mario and Luigi did done his entire Let's Play of Super Mario Bros. Super Mario Bros. 2 on new forms of the Super Mario All-Stars combination. So Baby Yoshi's still a thing though, most likely in forms of how it does it from before, but either way though, that's all I can really think about. So let's go ahead and switch to Luigi, and let's get into Mushroom Heights. Another thing is worth mentioning though is the fact that if you manage to complete the forms of the first tower level by the forms of the Crushing Corks tower, you do realize that the forms of back in the Wii U version of the game, that the game tells you about the forms of you know, just to activate the Miiverse support. Well, turns out the Miiverse support is no longer existent on this version, just because, you know, that particular system has been discontinued back in 2017. This is most notably because of how the fact that with the root messages and everything else for this recitable, well, I don't know if they're actually going to be continuing traditional things about that. Oh, Jesus Christ, that was close. Whew, that was really close, because I almost fell off due to the fact that with the Goon Brats just almost gets in my way, so yeah, as far as whatever I play this, yeah, it's pretty good actually. It still is a new Super Mario Bros. Game that I always attempt to enjoy, since the forms of the Wii U version of the game, because that was my first ever Nintendo Wii U game I've ever got back in 2012, back in Christmas 2012. If you want to check that out, then you can. So, either way though, alongside with Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed for the Nintendo Wii U, just in case by the forms of, you know, if I'm not interested with the forms of the Wii U games back in the day, then I can simply just grab those two just to keep my interest, for this most part though. So, and I did not meant to be able to toss away my Baby Yoshi though, because that would be incredibly idiotic, if you couldn't tell for that point, because I don't know why. Oh jeez. Anyway. So there we go, that's it for Mushroom Heights, and we're about to be moving on to the forms of, well, Acorn Plains-5. So, obviously the actual, not only by the forms that the levels themselves are pretty much exactly similar to the original version, but the actual game level text, or the level names, is still pretty much the same. So even then, though, nothing else different about it. So either way, let's go ahead and switch over to Toad again. Now, do you remember why I said this before about the fact that Blue Toad wasn't even in the game? Well, it turns out you're wrong, because if you're most able to press either ZL or the L button, then this happens. Well, what do you know? Blue Toad was in the game. Yeah, you guys are probably thinking about the fact that, oh my god, Blue Toad was dead. Rest in peace, my friend. But turns out he was still a playable character. But the thing is about Blue Toad this time around on this version of the game, though, for those of you who really want to play as him in multiplayer experience, that, unfortunately, though, you can only, select one Toad at a time, as opposed to two on the forms of the original version of the game, including New Super Luigi U and New Super Mario Bros. Wii, that, if you want to point things out from that, but, it's just unfortunate how the fact that, well, it might be, makes it a lot more sense, because it now calls it, just Toad, rather than just call it, like, Blue Toad and Yellow Toad for the actual, like, names themselves, because, well, it's pretty obvious. So, and, especially noticeable with the forms of the multiplayer experiences in this version, that multiplayer is still a thing, as I said this before. But the thing is, though, is the fact that, well, 3 of the players, especially on the new Super Mario Bros. U portion, that they can actually select the normal 3, like we used to at this rate. But when it comes to the 4th player, they always have to force the able to play as the one of the 2 easier characters to select, like either Toadette or Nabbit, which, either way, Toadette is actually a pretty easy character to use because of her special crown ability that she transforms into the forms of Peachette, and especially noticeable with the forms of Nabbit that he was in very easy, that because of that though, he'll become invincibility for the entire time. So either way though, the only time that the Nabbit wasn't become invincibility for any time is the forms of, let's just say the actual, like, projectiles or bombs, or in this case flames, or any kind of sort of hazardness is going on. So there we go. So that way we could able to leave the level. So yeah, that's as far as I can say about the forms of this game actually. So, oh yeah, there's one annoying, tiny little annoying thing about this version compared to the forms of the original version of the game, is the fact that if you're watching through or in this case, if you're watching the forms of the Game Explain review of New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, you do realize about the fact that there are some slight changes with the forms of the spin jump mechanic. Yes, because of that, the spin jump, well, it still usually utilizes that in the forms of one of the shoulder buttons, especially noticeable with the forms of, like, if you press the any of the trigger buttons, or even the L and R especially. But the thing is, this time around though, is the fact that you can now able to actually just activate those particular stuff by simply able to actually just how can I describe it? By the forms of if you really want to do a nice little spin jumps and all that stuff, now you have to rely on buddy forms of, if you ever accidentally press the A button or the jump button twice in midair, chances are you might accidentally just able to activate the spin jump, which either way, I heard that it did really bugging me off for a little bit. But either way though, when we get to the later levels, especially in the forms of World 9, in this case Superstar Road, then it will gonna be irritate the crap out of me most of the time, which either way, that might actually happen. So anyways though, let's move on to the last level of Acorn Plains, and that will have to be Lemmy's Swingback Castle. So obviously, when it comes to Koopalings themselves, they are pretty much on the exact same castle order. So even then though, you start with Lemmy first, and then all the way up to the very end of the forms of Ludwig von Koopa. So that's as far as you can usually go by this point. So yeah, that's as far as I can say. You can still play as your me in this version, but only on the forms of oh wow, actually oh frick. So, yeah, that was my first death of the actual main playthrough. In fact, it was actually at the very beginning of the game, actually, so that's kind of unfair. Although, I think the only reason why I accidentally done it is because I wasn't paying attention, so let's try this again. So yeah, you know, Nabbits can be harmed by the forms of the actual lava, just like the rest of the playable characters were, so everything else to be expected, because, you know, the lava itself is way too hot and all that stuff, so yeah, as I said this before, that you can also play as your me, but only on the forms of the Boost Rush mode and the Coin Battle mode, and especially noticeable with the forms of the Challenge mode as well, you know, just like the ones in the original version. So yeah, you can definitely tell about the fact that there's going to be some slight changes or comparisons of this game later on, but I digress. So here's the second star coin right there. If you're being as Nabbit, then it's impossible to grab it. Because, obviously, Nabbit can you know, he can't really grab the actual power-ups. The only time he gets power-ups, though, well, buddy forms, if you can grab those power-ups as possible, that when you finish up the main level, then you can able to actually just get yourselves a lot more extra lives. So, that might be the only case with the forms of this particular point for Nabbit. So let's try this again. Come on, let's see if I can just do that very, very carefully, and oh. Nah, still, it's not possible with Nabbit right there. So, the only characters you can only reach it from here is by the forms of Mario, Luigi, Toad, or in this case, Yellow or Blue Toad. Depends on what different color toads you go for, or by the forms of, well, I would say by the forms of Toadette as well. So even then, those are the only 4 characters they can only actually get the star coin. So that's why that Nabbit will be kind of worthless though, to able to actually just to get those star coins in the first place, because if you really want to get some by actually getting that specific power up, then too bad, you have to be able to actually just to go ahead and select Mario, Luigi, or Toad, or Toadette. So these are the only choices. So because of the reason why they did this is because of how the fact that, well, they might still manage to do the exact same way for how it does it in New Super Luigi U, obviously. So yeah, that's as far as I can usually say about this for the most part though. So anyways, let's go ahead and grab this Acorn mushroom, and let's just go ahead and basically finish the main level first, and then I'll come back for the star coin once I've switched over to Mario or Toadette, even in case if anything else will able to happen. In fact, what I'm gonna do is the fact that when I see these purple spaces by the forms of completing some of those stages as Nabbit, then I can able to actually play as Mario for the revisit levels, and then able to actually get the blue spaces, because in the forms of how I usually think about it, that this game might still retains the Super Guide block, but I'll discuss more in details onto that when we're able to finish up with not only New Super Mario Bros. U, but also New Super Luigi U as well, all in one combo, with the forms of New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe entirely. So yeah, if you can tell by this point, is that if you can clearly hear what's happening for Nabbit, if you can hear, Nabbit got himself you know, new voice clips. Because of that though, rather than it just becomes like a type of sound effects, instead that he got himself his new voices this time around. So even then, little interesting change here and there, but either way though, it's alright, I suppose. I just don't know why I just really say that. But yeah, as you can see that, you know, he's completely invulnerable to everything, although he occasionally gets hit every once in a while, but only for a few seconds by the forms of like some invincibility frames, and that's about it. So, and I've got myself, you know, 2 lives back. So yeah, what I'm going to do this time around though, in comparison to the forms of not only by the forms of switching between characters most of the time, but also I'm going to be going through world by world within one video only this time. So that because of that, I might decide to do that. So as a result, it just makes the actual uploading schedules a little bit more faster, sort of. But again, this particular uploading schedule has been up for quite late. So, but don't worry, when we get to tomorrow, especially in the next couple of days, then I would able to actually go to its normal state. So, yeah, let's switch back to Mario and get that last star coin before, you know, Acorn Plains is fully completed. And also, if you couldn't tell about the fact that the loading times has been increasing up slightly this time, rather than just loading itself too fast, unlike new forms of New Super Mario Bros. U on the original Wii U version of the game. So, yeah, you probably expect it at this point. So, yeah, you gotta be kidding me. That stupid little dry bones just, you know, I keep running into enemies like an idiot. I think that's how it goes. So, yeah, that's as far as I can usually say about the forms of the explanation of the forms of some changes by the forms of New Super Mario Bros. U on the Wii U and New Super Luigi U, which I'll explain more on that later. But either way though, that although there's one thing that I just want to point out right away, that if you ever play as Toadette or Nabbit in any one of the levels from New Super Mario Bros. U and New Super Luigi U, the 100 seconds has been added up compared to the forms of the original times. Even then though, like, for example, in the forms of, let's just get back into the forms of, Crushing Cock's Tower level for a second, that, in that particular level, if you start the level off with either Luigi, Mario, or any kind of colored toads, then, you start the level normally by 500 seconds. But if you play that level as Toadette or Nabbit, then you actually not only you do not start things off with 500 seconds, instead you start things off with 600 seconds. So this means that's why the actual difficulty system comes into play. Because of that though, Mario, Luigi, and especially Toad are considerably the normal mode. And Toadette is considered to be the easy mode, and Nabbit, he's essentially the very easy mode of the game. So, Yeah, it's entirely up to you if you want able to choose that character for a moment there. But even then, though, that's as far as I can usually say about the description goes. But since we actually complete the level as Mario, then the actual space is now turned back into blue. So naturally, though, only Mario, Luigi, or any kind of Toads, or even Toadette as a result for this matter, can able to actually get blue space cleared. So either way, yeah, as a result for that, however, though, then yeah. So that's it for Acorn Plains, and man, I love that level translation this time around. It's so unique as well. So anyways though, I'm gonna have to end things off at this point right there, I'm afraid, guys. So join me next time on Let's Play New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe for the Nintendo Switch. Is that we're about to be moving on to the second world of the game, is Layer Cake Desert. So, delicious. So see you guys next time. Later, fellas.